Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome back to the Duke Wisdom Podcast. It's been a few days now since Duke got its third win of the season over Bucknell. It feels like it's been a lot longer than a few days. I mean, I tweeted this out. I don't know about anybody else, but the few days in between the Bucknell and LaSalle game have felt like forever. And I think it's because there's just so many big college basketball games going on. Big time things going on, big tournaments starting. Right before I started talking here, watching the Maui Invitational, Tennessee knocking off Syracuse and Purdue and Gonzaga going at it in the first round of Maui. I mean, how electric is that tournament this year? With number 11 Gonzaga playing number 2 Purdue day one, that's crazy. I mean, the Kansas, Tennessee, Purdue, Gonzaga, even UCLA, Syracuse, only one of them can come out winning that thing. And that's huge. And then looking at what the Battle for Atlantis slate has, and I'm just sitting here thinking, man, when's the last time Duke played in one of these? Like really played in one of these big tournaments? And the answer is when Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett were there in 2018-19. They played in the Maui Invitational in 2018. They beat San Diego State. Marquise Bolden had like the game of his life with 8 blocks against Auburn. And then they lost just barely to Gonzaga in the championship of that one. And they must not have liked losing in that because they haven't really done it since. I think the next season they played in I don't remember what it was called. Might have been the 2K Classic or something. But they played like 2 games and one of against Georgetown in California, which wasn't anything crazy. And then since then they haven't done anything. It's been like the Blue Devil Challenge. Duke has the Blue Devil Challenge where they're playing Bucknell, LaSalle, and Southern Indiana. And I get it. They went out of their way to schedule some more tough games this year. They've got the neutral court game with Baylor. They've got the home game against Arizona that they played. Obviously, the Champions Classic, the SEC Challenge. They've got 4 very tough games, no doubt about it. But there's something so fun about watching them play in those in-season tournaments like Maui and Battle for Atlantis, particularly. Those two are the big ones. And, Duke hasn't played in Maui since 2018, and they haven't played at Battle for Atlantis. I mean, unless I'm wrong about this, I don't think they played in Battle for Atlantis since 2012. That's crazy. Like, somebody's got to get them back into one of those tournaments or something. I mean, I guess they played in the PK 85 last season. I suppose they did do that, and they played in that in 2017 as well. So I suppose I'm forgetting about the PK 85 last year. That was, I went on this whole rant for like a couple minutes now, talking about how they haven't played in a big tournament since Maui. Well, they haven't played in the traditional tournaments since Maui. They did play in the PK 85 last season. They got a game with Purdue and they got a game with Xavier, which was cool to see. But still, I mean, it had been a few seasons since they'd done anything, even last year, and the PK tournament only happens every 5 years. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is I really just want to see Duke back in Maui or Battle for Atlantis. That's the point I'm really making, because I completely forgot about the PK 85 tournament. But I just want to see Duke play in those big tournaments year in and year out. It felt like they used to play in one of those every season, and that's not so much the case anymore.
Want to join a community of Duke accounts publishing news, theories, and predictions on Duke athletics? Join the Duke Wisdom Network. Just go to dukewisdom.org/join network today and fill out the form with your name and social media. Or you can DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram. Become a part of the community of Duke fans publishing their takes today. Again, that's dukewisdom.org/join network or DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram.
Well, anyway, moving on to the tournament tournament in quotation marks. You can't see me do that. It's a podcast. But moving on to the tournament that they are in, I guess, the Blue Devil Challenge. They played their first game in the Blue Devil Challenge against Bucknell on Friday. Bucknell, not a very good team, came in 1-3. That didn't stop them from knocking down a bunch of triples and making the game a little more interesting for a while than it should have been. And it became real interesting when Kyle Filipowski went down with that injury, man. With the way he was holding that leg, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I know a lot of Duke fans' lives flashed before their eyes. I was just like, yeah, Duke's cooked. Like if Kyle Filipowski has a serious injury, they're so cooked. They're so cooked because that would force some players that aren't ready into some huge positions. And so lives flashed before people's eyes. I was prepared to take the mic after that game for a Duke therapy session if Kyle Filipowski had been seriously injured. That's what I was prepared to do. But he was fine. He came back out in the second half and he rocked it. He didn't do a whole lot in the second, but I think all Duke needed to see is that he was healthy, that he was back. Those were the important things. He didn't really need to play in the second half. The game was under control. It was time for a lot of guys to get some run, off the bench. Talking about guys getting a run off the bench. Talk about that breakaway dunk from Ryan Young. Some bounce, man. We gotta talk. He only had 2 points. There's only 2 points. This is my entire Ryan Young player breakdown versus Bucknell. He had those 2 points and got the rip. I mean, he's running, he's gunning that thing. I know he has a good mile run time, but he's gunning down there. Got the bounce with a nice 2-hand dunk. Got a lot of that rim, man. That's a sturdy dunk. That's not that weak, just over the rim 9th grader 2-hand dunk he had against Pitt in the ACC tournament last year, man. That was a real man's dunk right there. That was a real man's dunk. That one had me jumping. I'm not gonna lie. And so very impressed by the self-proclaimed podcast boy. I like to think of myself as a lower version of podcast boy. But some impressive vertical there from Ryan Young. He was teasing it. He said that he was working on the vert, man. He didn't lie. Ryan Young got up there and he threw down. So, how many more times are we going to get a Ryan Young dunk? Are we going to get a Ryan Young dunk again? That may have been the very last time, but hopefully not, because that's pretty electric. I won't lie. But going down the rest of the players, kind of player by player for the Bucknell game. Duke wins this one 90-60. It's hard to complain about a 30-point win, but honestly, I think that maybe they should have won by more and would have if they didn't have as slow of a start as they did. They played fine after the first, 10, 15 minutes of the game. They were fine. And most importantly, and most notably rather, Mark Mitchell was great. He had 20 points. That's a career high for Mark. He had never broke the 20-point threshold. He was 8 of 13 from the floor, 3 of 3. He's been terrific from the line, just terrific. I think he was 9 of 9 against Michigan State. He's 3 of 3 here against Bucknell. 1 of 3 from 3. He had 6 boards, 2 assists, and a block as well. But Mark, I think through his first 3 games, averaging 14 points a game, that's second best on the team. He's done incredibly well, and his presence has been felt defensively especially. But I've been begging for the last few episodes, can we get an aggressive Mark Mitchell offensive performance? Because I love it when he goes and attacks the rim aggressively, tries to go get his buckets, because I think he's one of the most skilled scorers on the team. Finally, we get that game. I'm still waiting on it against like a ranked opponent, but we got that game against Bucknell, and we saw one of Mark Mitchell's best games in a Duke uniform with 20 points. Very impressed. I think his second player of the game, his second Duke Wisdom player of the game during his time at Duke. Next guy, I'm just going down the box score right now. Next guy is Kyle Filipowski. Just be glad that it wasn't a serious injury. He only played 17 minutes in the game, probably because of it. He only scores 10 points, 6 boards. That knocks his averages down, and he's right there in the thick of the National Player of the Year conversation. So you never want to see those numbers go down, but there's plenty of season left to play, and he'll have opportunity to pull those averages up. Next guy up, Tyrese Proctor. Again, a pretty solid game from Proctor. I think he had 13 against Michigan State. He has 13 against Bucknell. Again, 5 of 8 from the floor, 3 of 6 from 3. That's solid shooting splits, 4 dimes, no turnovers. Still through 4 games, Tyrese Proctor, I think, has 4 turnovers, which is just incredible, because I think he averages almost 6 assists per game. So it's just about a 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, and that's fantastic for Proctor. He's not putting up eye-popping point totals, but that's kind of to be expected. He is, however, playing the role of distributor and point guard to a T. Next guy up, Jared McCain, had his best game by far of his young freshman career. He had 5 of 8 from the floor, 5 of 7 from three. We've been waiting for that 3-point shot to start falling. We saw it in the McDonald's All-American game where he was setting records in the 3-point contest. 5 of 7, great shooting. Ends up with 17 points after laying a goose egg against Michigan State. He makes up for it, goes for 17, and shows why he is a good choice to be a starter. I think last episode I may have been like, oh, let's give Caleb Foster a go. Well, Jared McCain said, let's keep Jared McCain in the lineup, actually. But maybe even the most impressive part about that whole line is he had 10 boards, led the team in rebounding, and pulled off a double-double at 6'3", a double-double with boards at that. So very good, very impressive game from McCain and a great bounce back. Jeremy Roach had 9 points. All right game. I'd still like to see one of those signature 20-plus pointers from Jeremy Roach. Hopefully he'll get one of those going pretty soon. Sean Stewart had a solid game off the bench. He played 16 minutes. He scored 6 points. He did pick up 4 fouls. He's still a little bit, iffy on the fouls. He's got that freshman big in him where he picks up a little too many hand contact fouls. But he had 7 boards as well and 3 steals, which led the team. So really good defensive impact from Sean Stewart. Liked what I saw from him. TJ Power, man, God, you just want to see those shots fall. TJ finally got on the floor a little bit. 11 minutes. Wanted to see those threes fall. Wanted to see baby Kyle Singler go crazy. But, when you're sitting there, you're, top 20 recruit and you're just sitting away on the bench, there's got to be some nerves working on you, right? You got to be second guessing some stuff. And, he just really wanted to see one of those threes fall. It didn't happen for him. He actually shot 0 of 4 from the floor. At least he was able to get to the stripe and earn his first 2 points as a Blue Devil, but still waiting on that first shot for TJ Power. And hopefully when it falls, that'll be a big confidence boost for him. And we'll see a big shooting increase. I think we're seeing a similar thing with him that we saw with Jaden Schutt. Like, we knew Jaden Schutt was a good shooter last season. A lot of times he would come in and just brick like 4 straight threes. And I think it was a lot of that was mental. Like, he's got the shot. We know he can hit it. But does he? Coming in, I think a lot of it's a mental battle. Getting those first shots to fall as a freshman when you've been sitting on the bench and it's a big opportunity to second guess yourself. And I'm not saying that's what he's doing. There's a lot of speculation going on for me right now, but I do think that it's a mental aspect to shooting. There's a huge mental aspect to shooting. And TJ Power has to get over that hurdle. And once he does, I think it's only uphill from there. Neil Begovic attempted a 3. He didn't make it, though, but shout out to Neil Begovic with a 3-point attempt. Already went through Ryan Young's entire game. That's not true, actually. He led the team in assists. Great passing from the top of the free throw line down underneath. It was great passing from Ryan Young. I do want to talk about that. Spencer Hubbard came in, got a foul, got a board. Shout out to Hub. 9 points, 6 assists. Actually, Ryan didn't lead the team in assists. I messed this up on my post on Twitter too. I'm realizing Caleb Foster did. He had 6 dimes. So my bad, CFOS. I messed that up. But Caleb Foster with 6 dimes, 9 points. It wasn't the 18-point Michigan State game, but it was still a very effective, very solid game. Jalen Blake's in 17 minutes had 2 points as well. So that's kind of breaking down the Bucknell game. And so I'll look forward a little bit. This one might end up being a little bit shorter of an episode. That I'm not sure exactly what Thursday is going to look like. I don't know if I'm going to try to put out an episode Thursday or if I'm going to put it off to like Friday or Saturday. It's Thanksgiving weekend. I'm going to be busy. I'm not sure exactly how. I know everybody else is going to be busy, and probably the last thing that anybody wants to do is listen to me talk on Thanksgiving. My family doesn't get to get out of it, but I might let you guys off the hook. But yeah, so I'm unsure about whether I'll be dropping Thursday, whether I'll drop a different day over this weekend, because I do want to do a LaSalle game recap, obviously. And honestly, if I put out something, over the weekend, I could just bundle the LaSalle and the Southern Indiana game into one, because when you have games that are probably blowouts, I've got a little bit less to say about them than I do about the contentious games. And I might want to spend more time, hyping up that Arkansas game for next week than I do recapping the Southern Indiana game. But let's go ahead and preview a little bit into these next 2 matchups the Blue Devil Challenge. LaSalle coming up. They're the number 208 team on KenPom. They are 4-0, so they are undefeated right now. They got a 6-point win on Drexel. They got a 5-point win on Northeastern, a 12-point win on Bucknell, and they beat Southern Indiana by just a point. So nothing crazy impressive, but like they haven't lost yet. They're scrappy. I expect this to be the closest of the 3 games that Duke plays in the Blue Devil Challenge. I think LaSalle is certainly the best of the 3. Duke still shouldn't be worried if they take this game seriously. They hit some shots, play solid defense, don't let anything through the cracks. This should be a win for Duke. And then there's the Southern Indiana game coming up on Black Friday. Southern Indiana lost its first game of the season to St. Louis by 12. They lost to Michigan State by 23. They lost to Chicago State, ouch, by 11. And then they beat Tiffin, who is not Division I, I believe. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that, by 3. Then they lost to LaSalle, like I said earlier, by a point. So they are, what is that, like 1-4? That's kind of tough. Southern Indiana is not a very good team. They're ranked 327th on KenPom. If Duke's going to win a game by 50 here in the early season, this would be the time to do it. This would be the time to break out the half a century piece on a team. But, never count your chickens, man. 22-point game with Michigan State. They only lost by a point to LaSalle. Obviously, don't count on beating anybody the way you're going to beat them. Any team coming in and having a good shooting day can make a much closer game than Duke would like. I think there's certainly no doubt about that at all. To end this episode up, because I'm running so short, I want to talk a little bit about something that I've been thinking about, and that's the Duke in the NBA. Dude, a lot of the Duke guys in the NBA this season haven't been hitting their marks kind of in the way that you would expect, but then there's also a few guys that have been definitely surpassing the marks that I would expect. Like, no doubt surpassing those marks. So I'm just going to go, alphabetically down to see what these guys are doing. I think that you've got Grayson Allen averaging 12.3 points per game. He's been really solid, probably having maybe even the best season of his young career so far. Marvin Bagley's doing all right. He's averaging 10. He's averaging 10 points a game. 10.8 for Bagley. He's done all right. Paulo, his numbers are getting better, but a little bit lower than you would want. It's a very early in the season. Don't get me wrong, but 18.7 points, 6.7 rebounds. He's hitting a little bit of a sophomore slump, but he's getting back into the hang of things. You kind of want to see those points increase. In 8 games of play, RJ Barrett at 21.6 points per game. He was higher than that. Still looking for that jump for RJ. I think that he has such good all-star potential, but he just hasn't been able to make that jump. Marquise Bolton got in for a game in Milwaukee. He didn't score got some boards. Wendell Carter, just 9 points per game, and then 8.6 rebounds. Solid numbers, but he's only played in 5 games, obviously, dealing with injuries. Seth Curry, just 3 points per game. Same with AJ Griffin, who's kind of been pushed out because of Jalen Johnson, and that's who you really need to talk about. 15 points per game, 8 rebounds per game for Jalen Johnson. What a breakout third season for him. know a lot of Duke fans don't want to claim Jalen Johnson. That's fair. He quit in after less games at Duke than he's already played this year for the Hawks. So I suppose that's fair, but he is having a really good season. So there's that. 23 points per game for Brandon Ingram. That's pretty solid. Kyrie's up to about 24 now for Dallas. He had a really solid game against the Bucks the other night. And then 8 points per game for Trey Jones. Popovich refuses to start the man. He's been solid, though. I think like 5.7 assists per game. Yeah, that's really good for him. Tyus Jones, averaging a little less than maybe I thought. 9.8 points per game. I kind of figured he'd average a little more this season. So a little disappointed with the point total, but again, Tyus doing Tyus stuff efficiency-wise. Luke Kennard, 8 points per game. Derek Lively, man, 8.6 points, 7.5 boards, some blocks. D-Live's been crazy. Starter already for Dallas. He is a level ahead of where I thought he would be during his rookie year. This is maybe what I thought he was going to be doing his second year in the league. And he is a step above what I believed he would be at. Wendell Moore hasn't played yet. Mason Plumlee about 5 points per game. This takes so long, and what a blessing for Duke in the NBA. There's so many guys. Cam Reddish about 8 points per game. 27.5 for JT. 8.7 boards. Boston's been great. Gary Trent up to 11.5 points per game now. 13. Mark Williams, great sophomore campaign here for Mark. 13.5 points per game, 9.5 rebounds per game for Mark. Charlotte not hitting on a whole lot, but Mark Williams is. So fantastic for the big lanky shot blockers from the last 2 seasons for Duke. Williams and Lively have been fantastic so far this year in the league. I think they're the two biggest happy surprises, them and Jalen Johnson. Then Zion Williamson averaging 21.8 points per game as well, with some decent secondary, 6.3 boards, 4.4 assists. So I just wanted to do a little bit of a Duke in the NBA kind of stat recap. Is something I want to keep track of and be able to talk about, keep up with the guys that aren't wearing Duke blue right now, but always still in the hearts of Duke fans. And some guys really impressing, some guys having a little slower start than anticipated, but it's a very young NBA season. Most teams are 13 games in, 14 games into a 82 game season. So have a little patience there for sure. But anyway, thanks so much for listening, guys. I might talk to you Thursday. I might talk to you at some point during the weekend. It's flexible. Have a happy Thanksgiving, man. Spend time with your family, your loved ones. Have a good meal. Watch some college basketball. If football's your thing, watch some football, no doubt. Great day for it. Thanks so much for listening in. Make sure to subscribe and follow as always. Follow at Duke_Wisdom on Instagram and Twitter. And I'll talk to you guys.